So before we spend the time to refine our concepts, we need to keep in our mind that we need to have 2 or 3 different concepts that we can present to the client before we move forward to other branding exercises and activities. So how do I choose and present the concepts to the client? Clients need a choice, but not too much choice. Choose 2 to 4 design ideas to present to the client, and we will bring the client in several times before heading deeper into the branding work. Clients do not know what they want until they see it. I try to pick 3 different concepts. The first one is a safe choice. This concept aligns perfectly with the client expectations, feedback, questions, and all the research you've done. Second, I like to do a pushing it concept. This starts to challenge what is predictable and safe for the client. Lastly, a more extreme left field concept that really challenges what they thought they needed. A lot of times those out there concepts do not get picked, and the safer concept decisions are made. But there are cases when clients felt drawn to the more extreme concept because it was something that challenged what they thought they needed, bringing in fresh new perspectives, which is why they hired you. You are a creative person, right? And remember, you did lots of great research already. So all of your concepts are based on data, meaning, and client appeal already. So now that we know we need to kind of get 3 different types we want to present to the client as we continue to refine the 4 or 5 main concepts we have, let's think about what the final 3 might be, which one might be our safe option, which one might be our pushing it option, and which one might be one that where it's going to be a little bit more testing them, but it's going to be something that could start some great conversations. So let's get started with refining our concepts and getting those presentations ready for the client. So let's take each one of these concepts, work through them one by one, make sure we have some final typography choices before we show these to the client. And remember, we're not messing with color too much. We're just going to show them the idea and the concept. So let's go back to basics and let's move all of this out of the way. And let's talk about our first concept here. This is the chopsticks and the SC. Well, this is going to need a full company name and a tagline as well. So I'm going to go ahead and type in Sushi Club. And let's go ahead, I believe this is Montserrat. So let's go ahead and take the eyedropper tool and see if we can't make that consistent. And let's just do a quick duplicate and put our tagline. And our tagline needs to be a lot smaller than our main name. So it needs to be, it's a tagline. It's not the name, the main name, and then the main name is Sushi Club. So now's a chance that we can really see what kind of typography choices might work. So let's make this a lot smaller. Let's duplicate this. I do this in a lot of my classes, but the process is the same no matter what logo you do. It is the same process. So let's try in all caps. Let's try in all caps for the subtitle. Let's also make that a thinner weight because we want to have some nice contrast somewhere because all that is the same weight and it all blends together. So let's separate this through changing our weight. And we can even have this all be all caps. And let's do this all lowercase just to see what that looks like. So all lowercase can be very approachable. So you see how this looks almost like you're yelling, authentically prepared. You already have Sushi Club all caps. So if you make authentically prepared all caps, it just seems like both of them are screaming at you at the same tone. So if we make this lowercase, it softens it and really helps to soften the top as well. Don't worry about alignment yet. We'll get to the grid and all that once a concept is chosen. So we are just sticking to this typeface that we discovered earlier in our research process, but we don't have to stick with that typeface. We know we want a chunky typeface, so that's going to be kind of an easy choice. Roboto Slab was one that we used with another concept, so it's worth taking a look here. And I have a lot of students who use really thin weights for small type and logos, but they don't do the visibility test. And they zoom out, and if I can't read it, I can read this one really well. but I cannot read that one really well. So you got to be careful with using super thin weighted typefaces that are going to be taglines or something really small. Save it for something bigger. So we can go to our filters and say we definitely want a heavyweight. I think a condensed typeface, see how condensed is shorter in width? That could work really well because we do have kind of a skinnier width icon. So if you have a really skinny width icon, it'd be nice to have a nice condensed typeface. And I think I want to continue to do the sans serif. So just kind of helping us filter that out so we don't feel like we have too many font choices to cycle through. That one is interesting. Den. I wonder how that would look all caps. So switching that to all caps and making that bigger. See, that's a condense. Look how much taller the typography is, and it really helps fill out that vertical space because you have this very vertical icon. If you look at how vertical that is, it's not a square, it's not a horizontal, it's very vertical. So pairing a vertical typeface with a vertical icon really kind of works well here. If we were to use this as well, so we have two very similar typefaces here, that is a lot. That is a lot going on. My eye is having a hard time differentiating between these two line types. And there's only one weight of den that I have here in condensed anyway. So let's see if I can't soften that by using a different typeface. Perhaps a lowercase would work really good. Even an italic might look, or a script could even look good there. Let's continue. We have our filter on, so we have a lot of our typefaces already filtered. So I only have a very short list here that matches everything that I selected. And this one's called Omnis Condensed. So Omnis Condensed. That's almost a little too childish. It's almost too rounded of the edges, and I worry that that's not going to resonate with kind of the higher end. Slightly more expensive than average price of our product. So as cool as that could look for that more bright, fun, vibrant look, I want to kind of split the difference between those two styles and do something that's not too fun and not way too reserved. Something right in the middle, which is what the client wanted. Azo Sans, it's always a tried and true one. Let's see if I can't keep it in the same font family for the tagline. Ooh, I have lots of different font weights, which makes me excited. Let's see if an italic looks good here. And a little worried about the thinness of that type, but I do like how it pairs well with a thicker on the top. I'm going to do a medium italic. If I'm too worried, I just do a medium. And just making sure I have enough space and breathing room between everything. So there we have it. We have a couple of really good options for this first concept. And I feel like this would be our safe option. This is very safe. You have an S and a C, you have chopsticks, you have a Mackie roll. And you have some very safe type choices. Of course, I need to center align all these at some point. So for our safe option, maybe we should stay pretty safe with our type choice. I think there's something a little bit missing. I can go ahead and eliminate some that I don't think are working really well. So let me just eliminate, I think the all caps for the tagline's not working. So, but I think this works really well here. This is kind of too thin. It doesn't have that strength to it or that confidence. So I'm going to get rid of this one. The serif, or the slab serifs, I think compete with the icon. We have that's not a complicated icon, but there are some things going on with it. So when you have a slab, it also competes. There's different elements going on in the typography. It makes it more complex. So in this case, maybe not a slab. A slab might work better in the seal graphic. And the lowercase doesn't feel as strong on the main name. It feels too strong for the tagline, but for this lowercase, it's feeling very weak. So I like the idea of staying all uppercase with the name and lowercase with the tagline. And I like the contrast here between the main name and the tagline. So I think we got some things narrowed down, but I'm not happy with it yet. So let me make a duplicate of this. And let's see if I can't make this a thinner weight. Let's do regular. And I'm just trying to find contrast opportunities. And what's great is you would say, oh, well, that looks like one word. But when you have such a high contrast between two words, it almost gives it its own separation that way. But I do want to have a little bit of a separation. And this is one when I did this entire process before I did the class to plan it out. So I kind of knew the general direction I was going, so I didn't look like I was lost. And this is the one I ended up going with in my own personal journey through this whole process before filming the class. But this one is interesting. This is kind of one I discovered while I was doing this again with you guys, is this more condensed typeface. I like the way this looks. The only problem is you have a mismatch between the letters up here and the letters down here. So, I mean, one thing you can do is get the same typeface so that there's at least some consistency here between the top and the bottom. You don't want to use two totally different typefaces when they're sitting right there next to each other. I think it's interesting. I would love to even bold if there's a bolder weight. There is not. So let me see if I can't right click. I'm just creating outlines. I'm just adding an artificial thickness to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to stroke panel, and I'm adding some artificial thickness to just by adding a stroke to see how that looks. So that looks a lot better. Just those couple of tweaks I did with making the typeface consistent and also kind of artificially thickening the typeface. So now that I'm looking at these, the condensed makes a lot of sense because you have a very condensed icon, so there's not as much of a difference in ratio between the width of the typography and the width of the icon. Here you probably have bigger of a ratio. So let's see, that one is wider and this is more narrow. So yeah, you can tell the difference between, there's a lot more space on the left and right here, and this seems more even. So when it comes to this is one concept. This is our safe concept that we're presenting to the client. So we don't want to confuse them too much. We don't want to say, well, here's one concept, but 2 different versions, and here's another concept and 5 different versions, and here. So we need to simplify what we present. So if we really are having a hard time here, and we're just down to 2 variations of one concept, I would present these on the same page to the client. So I would make sure to put a lot of separation between the 2 and present them like this and say, you know what? I'm not 100% sure which direction to go in, but the concept, you can look at all the research I've done, the concept is strong. I'm having some trouble deciding a specific typeface. So if I were to present all those different versions I had, that would overwhelm the client and they get frustrated. It's up to you to make those choices of what to present to the client, and it's a lot less is better. So if I had any kind of choice, I would love to present one concept for the safe version and not have to present 2 versions. So anyway, I know that's complicated, but this is how I would present it, very simple. I would put it on an 8.5 by 11, just a 1-page PDF document. And I would tweak it slightly and just tell them, hey, it's not the final version. We're just exploring concepts here. Show them the original sketch. You can show them all of your research that you've done. You can write that out. Say, there's my profile that I developed. Here's some brainstorming, word mapping words. These are the associated words that I came up with, like authentic and fresh and all the stuff we did. We can kind of put that in a couple paragraphs of an email. You can even attach the user persona you came up with. There's a lot of ways to present this concept to the client. So this is going to be our safe version. We're going to come up with one that's pushing it a little bit, maybe incorporating the knife, and then the more extreme option, which will most likely be the one that I felt like was really hard to work with, but let's just see if the client likes it. If they want to pursue it, great. If not, we can easily eliminate that and narrow it down to our final choice.